3,000 light-years from Earth, a purple stone rests, holding the power to annihilate the entire universe. In the 22nd century, the crew of the medical rescue spaceship Nightingale 229 embarks on a mission in deep space. The ship's computer technician, Benjamin Sotomayor, is playing chess with the onboard AI, Sweetie. Meanwhile, paramedic Danica Lund and nurse Jerzy Penalosa are making love, and captain and pilot A.J. Marley is analyzing the violence in Tom and Jerry cartoons for his anthropology dissertation. Co-pilot Nick Van Zant relaxes in zero gravity under a transparent dome. Later, Sweetie informs Nick that he needs to verify his credentials to participate in rescue missions. Nick used to be a military pilot, and 6 months ago, he completed rehab for drug addiction. Nick heads to see Dr. Kayla Evers, who scans his brain and confirms that he's cleared for duty. While they talk, a robot dressed as a World War II pilot walks in, surprising Nick. Kayla explains that the robot is dressed this way for Captain Marley, who has a fascination with 20th century culture. Kayla then asks Nick why he decided to work in space after his military career. He replies that space is much more peaceful, though he's concerned that the crew seems too absorbed in personal distractions instead of their duties. Kayla reassures him, stating that she's confident in the crew, having worked with them for multiple shifts. She also prescribes Nick medication to help ease his withdrawal symptoms, reduce anxiety, and assist in building rapport with the team. Following Kayla's advice, Nick tries to get to know his colleagues better. He joins Benjamin for a game of cards, chatting with Sweetie, who offers commentary on their game. Benjamin confides that he added human-like thoughts to the AI's programming, but the higher-ups aren't supposed to know. Soon after, Nick returns to Kayla, and she attributes his improved mood to the medication. However, Nick insists he hasn't taken the pills and asks her to stop treating him as a recovering addict. Suddenly, an alarm blares across the Nightingale 229.
Emergency distress signal received.
The entire crew prepares for a new operation. Nick informs them that they've received an SOS signal, which has been traveling toward them for 5 days and wasn't sent from a central command but directly from the source. The unusual nature of the signal raises concerns for Captain Marley. Nick also discovers that the signal originates from a commercial company, Titan 37, which conducts mining operations on a distant colony's moon. Benjamin asks the AI for more details. Sweetie reports that the moon where the mining took place had drifted off its orbit due to gravitational instability and is now classified as a rogue planet. Mining operations were halted when the moon entered an unexplored zone, and all workers were evacuated 5 years ago. The source of the signal is currently over 3,000 light-years away from their ship. Captain Marley notes that if they intend to respond to the signal, they will need to teleport, something they haven't done in a long time. Meanwhile, the AI identifies the person sending the signal as a man named Carl Larson. No one, except Kayla, knows who that is, but she insists he is an extremely dangerous person. After confirming that all systems are functional, Captain Marley orders the crew to prepare for the rescue operation. Nick calculates the exact course, while Sweetie readies the teleportation chambers. The crew takes their positions in the chambers, and Nightingale makes the jump to another dimension. After some time, the crew regains consciousness but is horrified to find that Captain Marley has suffered numerous severe injuries due to a malfunction in his teleportation chamber. Kayla immediately tries to help him, but at that moment, the ship is jolted by a collision with space debris. A massive chunk of debris punctures the main engine, causing a fuel leak of 82%. Even worse, Nick discovers they have teleported into the gravitational field of a blue giant star, which is 10 times stronger than that of the sun. The ship begins rapidly descending toward the giant surface. While Kayla is still trying to tend to Captain Marley, he begs her to end his suffering. Reluctantly, Kayla complies. Nick switches to manual control and manages to steer the ship away from an imminent crash. Sweetie reports that the teleportation system needs to recharge before they can escape the gravitational pull, and this process will take 17 hours and 1 minute. However, they are currently in a point of the atmosphere where the ship will burn up in 17 hours and 12 minutes, meaning the crew will have only 11 minutes to escape once the teleporters are ready. Nick orders Sweetie to guide the ship along an orbital path and continuously broadcast their coordinates and distress signals, hoping to locate any survivors from the Titan 37 expedition. Later, Nick visits Kayla in her quarters, bringing a bottle of fine brandy and suggesting they have a drink together. Kayla agrees, and they enjoy the evening before making love in zero gravity. Meanwhile, Danica and Jerzy spend the night together, discussing their desire to start a family. Meanwhile, Benjamin resumes his chess game with Sweetie and then starts investigating what went wrong with Captain Marley's teleportation chamber. Soon after, he calls Nick and Kayla to inform them that the fans in Marley's chamber were improperly calibrated. However, the error signal was detected before the teleportation, meaning Marley must have known about the malfunction. It seems likely that Marley chose to take the risk, knowing that reporting the issue to command would have resulted in their recall to Earth. Nick later gathers the crew to discuss their dire situation. He reminds them that they've lost most of their fuel but insists that what remains is enough to power the ship's mini thrusters, which will protect them from burning up while the teleporters recharge. Suddenly, Sweetie interrupts the meeting to report that an unmanned transport ship has launched from the lunar mining site and is heading toward Nightingale 229's distress signal. Moments later, Sweetie detects a fire on board the transport ship and warns the crew that they need to dock with it immediately. The crew suits up in protective gear and prepares to meet the lone survivor fleeing the burning transport ship. As the person collapses unconscious, Kayla and Danica rush to remove his helmet to administer first aid. When Kayla sees the man's face, she realizes that he is not the Carl Larson she once knew. This means that the person who arrived on their ship didn't send the distress signal. Upon examining the stranger, Kayla finds him in perfect health but notices a minor anomaly in his bone growth. A while later, Nick summons Kayla to the bridge. He's determined to understand why Carl Larson summoned the Nightingale and what her connection to him was. Hesitant, Kayla reveals that she and Larson had a relationship, and the man they just rescued bears a striking resemblance to Larson's son. Meanwhile, Danica continues her examination of the rescued man. Distracted for a moment, she returns to find him awake and standing before her completely naked. Introducing himself as Troy, he compliments Danica, but she, embarrassed, quickly excuses herself. On the bridge, Nick, Kayla, and Benjamin discuss their teleportation issue. With only 5 functioning teleportation chambers, and now 6 people aboard, Nick declares that everyone except him will teleport, and he'll figure something out. Kayla vehemently opposes this, unwilling to lose Nick, but he orders her to comply. Later, Kayla returns to Troy, who confirms that Carl Larson was indeed his father but that Larson had died 3 years ago. Troy admits he always thought his father was a despicable man, but in his final moments, Larson told Troy that if he ever faced serious trouble, he should contact Kayla, whom he loved deeply. Nick then joins them, and Troy explains what happened to him. He and some friends had been conducting illegal excavations at the old mining sites. When they found nothing of value, his so-called friends abandoned him, flying off in the main ship and leaving him with an old shuttle. Nick presses Troy for more details, particularly about how much fuel remains in the mines, hoping they can refuel their ship. Troy claims they're in luck, there's plenty of fuel left. Despite his uneasy demeanor, Nick decides to take the risk and plans a mission to the moon using the shuttle. As Nick makes his way through the corridor, he runs into Yerzy and asks him to conduct a thorough inspection of every corner and system on their ship. Yerzy offers to send a robot, but Nick, sensing something's off, insists that Yerzy do it himself. Nick then asks Benjamin to have Sweetie analyze the Titan 37's computer systems to see if they're still operational. He also wants Sweetie to chart a path to the mines and check for any potential survivors who could pose a threat. Yerzy begins his inspection of the ship and soon notices Troy flirting with Danica. While scanning Troy's belongings, Yerzy makes a startling discovery: a mysterious alien artifact emitting a purple glow. Yerzy immediately reports the find to Nick but becomes captivated by the strange stone, staring at it in awe. Soon after, Nick arrives to examine the alien artifact. His gaze sharpens as he cautiously asks Yerzy if he touched it. Yerzy, feeling uneasy, lies and claims he didn't. Word of the artifact spreads among the crew, and Kayla uses a robot to safely transfer it to the isolation chamber. Meanwhile, Troy confesses to the crew that he's a treasure hunter. 3 years ago, he intercepted a conversation between miners who mentioned discovering something unusual on a drifting moon. Excited by the prospect, Troy gathered a group of his friends and set out to find the treasure. They eventually located Titan 37, but there were no miners, nor any signs they had ever been there. Frustrated, Troy's friends abandoned him and left on their ship, but Troy remained, determined to thoroughly explore the mysterious moon. His perseverance paid off when he discovered the strange artifact deep within the planet's core. Now, he's convinced the government will pay a massive sum for the stone and even offers the crew 5% of the reward. However, Nick is skeptical about bringing the artifact to Earth, pointing out that they know nothing about its origin or properties. Troy tries to assure the crew that the artifact is perfectly safe, but Kayla argues that Troy likely made contact with the stone, which is why his bone tissue has been growing abnormally fast. Troy insists that his condition is genetic, but the crew has no way of verifying his claim. Nick suggests scanning the stone and then ejecting it into space, but Troy is adamant that doing so would be throwing away the opportunity of a lifetime. In response, Nick sharply reminds him that because of his greed, they lost their captain and nearly died. He refuses to risk the crew's safety over the artifact. Later, Nick takes the shuttle to Titan 37 to retrieve fuel. Sweetie informs him that the fuel is located underground and that he'll need to use a pneumatic lift to descend into the mine, which extends over 3,000 meters below the surface. At the same time, Troy waits for Danica and shocks her by revealing that he knows about her desire to have a child. He suggests she consider whether Yerzy is really the right person to be the father, and then seduces her. Meanwhile, Yerzy sneaks into the containment chamber and continues observing the strange stone before eventually falling asleep next to it. Meanwhile, Sweetie finishes analyzing the artifact and informs Kayla that it's a 3-dimensional container holding 9-dimensional matter. The container disperses this 9-dimensional matter, which in turn creates new 3-dimensional matter around it. Kayla realizes the stone is essentially a bomb that could destroy the universe, but Sweetie explains that after the explosion, the universe would be filled with new forms of life. The stone generates new matter to keep the universe young. However, if they take it to Earth, it would blow up the planet and turn the sun into a supernova. Later, Danica finds Yeertzi next to the stone. He carefully helps him out of the chamber, and soon Yeertzi begins to show incredible strength and endurance that he's never had before. Kayla understands the dangerous artifact is the cause of this and decides to run tests on Yeertzi's body. She discovers his muscle mass is growing abnormally fast, but Yeertzi doesn't seem to find it strange. Additionally, it turns out that Yeertzi's body isn't just getting stronger, it's getting younger. Meanwhile, Nick finds himself deep in the mine and stumbles across several human corpses. He asks Sweetie to connect him to Kayla, but the AI doesn't respond. Suddenly, Troy comes on the line. He reveals that his fellow expedition members never left, he had to get rid of them. Nick realizes he's trapped and that there's no fuel in the mine. Troy informs him that Nick left the captain's cabin computer running, which means Troy now has control over all the equipment. Troy starts destroying the mine in retaliation for Nick trying to get rid of his discovery and for taking his girl. It turns out that Troy is actually Carl Larson, who gained strength, youth, and new abilities through contact with the stone, just like Yeertzi. Nick manages to escape the mine, but by then, his shuttle has already taken off. At this moment, Danica enters the control room and sees that Troy, now Carl, deliberately left Nick stranded on the moon. She attacks him, but he throws her into the airlock and then ejects her into space. Carl then finds Yeertzi outside the containment chamber. Yeertzi can't get inside due to the new lock code. With one punch, Carl destroys the lock using his newfound powers, then charges at the stunned Yeertzi. Yeertzi tries to fight back, swinging a metal pipe at Carl, but his blows have no effect. Carl skillfully snatches the pipe from Yeertzi's hands, locks him inside a capsule, and then ejects him into space. Meanwhile, Benjamin notices something strange happening on the ship. He asks Sweetie to connect him with Yeertzi, but she informs him that neither he nor Danica is on board. Soon, Carl finds Kayla and is about to speak when Benjamin interrupts. He tells Kayla what Carl has done to their friends and then shoots Carl in the abdomen. Kayla and Benjamin flee to get more weapons, realizing that getting rid of Carl won't be easy. They ask Sweetie to seal the hatches in the medical bay to trap Carl, but he manages to escape before that happens. Benjamin cautiously explores the ship, and suddenly Carl appears behind him. Benjamin reacts instantly and shoots him, but the wound on Carl's head heals immediately. He manages to hide from the crazed mutant behind some glass, but Carl keeps shooting at him. Benjamin asks Sweetie to evacuate all the air from the room where Carl is, but she responds that she can't harm humans. He pleads with her to reprogram herself, but while she tries to adjust her programming, Carl finishes off Benjamin. Soon, Sweetie informs Kayla that Benjamin is dead, and she tries to reach Nick, who is stranded on the moon. At that moment, Carl enters the cockpit. He confesses to her that he is indeed Carl and tries to convince her to start a new phase of evolution with him. Suddenly, Nick comes on the line. He managed to activate the emergency return module, which is now approaching Nightingale 229. This news catches Carl off guard, giving Kayla the chance to wound him with a laser and escape. Nick arrives shortly after, and a fierce battle ensues between him and Carl, resulting in Carl losing part of his arm. Kayla and Nick manage to lock him in the cargo bay, but he quickly escapes the trap and regenerates his arm. Meanwhile, Sweetie announces that the 9-dimensional matter is rapidly losing stability, making it even more dangerous. Nick then comes up with a plan to lower Carl into a transparent zero-gravity dome. Sweetie also informs them that the teleportation chamber is fully charged and that the crew has 10 minutes to return to Earth. Carl hears this and begins smashing all the chambers except one. Then he discovers that the artifact is missing and sets off to find it. Carl notices that Nick is transporting it into the dome and follows him. However, the stone is actually in the hands of a robot controlled by Kayla. Carl snatches the stone from the robot and suddenly notices that it contains explosives, which Nick activates immediately. A powerful explosion shakes the ship, and Kayla and Nick rush to the teleportation chamber. With only 2 minutes left until teleportation, Sweetie informs them that the 9-dimensional matter is reacting to the gravitational field of the blue giant. This means the 9-dimensional reaction could spread throughout the universe. As a result, a new star will be born, which will reach Earth in 51 years, potentially destroying all life or elevating humanity to a new level of existence. At the last moment, Nick and Kayla climb into the only remaining capsule and wait to return home. As the ship begins the teleportation process, the 9-dimensional matter bursts forth and creates a supernova. The teleportation is successful, but Sweetie reports that due to the close proximity of their bodies, 2% of their genetic material has been transferred. Kayla and Nick open their eyes to find that each of them has one eye that has changed color. Sweetie also scans their bodies and discovers that Kayla is pregnant. However, it's unclear whether the pregnancy occurred as a result of their contact a few hours earlier or if it's a consequence of teleporting in the same capsule. What would you do if you discovered an alien artifact like this? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.